they're going to change up right here. They're going to get rid of both the Gwen and the Yone. Yone ban makes a lot of sense. You want to avoid any possibility of having that Sejuani Yone combo that can really begin a wombo combo composition in a lot of ways. Final ban from LGD. A lot of the best pickups that we see in the top side and as those B1 options just kind of have already been taken off of the board. You're in a situation actually in this game number 3 where you're a little bit more free with what you want to get rid of. They don't want to have to deal with the side lane Yorick, but in theory, one of those very strong junglers still available. Xiaohao going to immediately slam that one. It leaves Vi open though. Vi was the other thing that kept being banned away, and I think that, alongside the Lilia, are Nio's best looking picks.
And so maybe LGD were comfortable leaving the Neferi up because it meant that they could get Vi in response. If it gets locked in here, would be pretty much expected. Still have some time to wait it out, as you only need to pick it in the first 3 because the jungler has already been selected here for EDG. So maybe LGD can focus on another selection here.
I think
they have a soul laner that they like a little bit better.
Yeah,
but it looks like it's going to be the Ambassador Vi.
Most definitely the strongest pairing of champions that you can pick up for yourself right now. See if it is just going to be this Renekton top lane. It does well in the team fights, but kind of just has a bit of a neutral matchup into the Ambessa. Can stop the Ambessa scaling early on, which is pretty impactful. A late game strong Ambessa is very scary, and this is something you were calling out earlier on. You want to see Angel on his most comfortable champion right here in the Victor. We're going to get that one slammed right here for EDG.
And so immediately seeing a very good team fighting composition for EDG to start things off. Obviously the bot lanes have gotten more and more kind of proactive, aggressive, for both of these squads. Things like the Lucian Nami, the Kaisa has opened up here for EDG. What will On and Wink decide to round out this composition with when you already have a ton of frontline and backline damage on your side? Maybe a little bit more utility. The Ashe and the Varus both available right now here, or the Varus actually banned away on the red side. The Ahri responded here by XQW as we head into that second phase of bans. Bot lanes for both sides have to be selected.
I do wonder if you want something a little bit more defensive right here for Arn, something like the Ezreal to get you away from potential Ahri charms, from potential public executions coming through from Sasa. There's a lot of backline dive and access right here for LGD that makes it an interesting decision what ADC they want to go towards. You don't want to get left behind. The ideal pickup in this situation would usually have been something like the Kai'Sa, but that was already picked up in game number 2 for EDG, so you're not going to have the ability to play towards that one. Draven actually taken off of the board, so they're worried about a very aggressive bot lane right here. With EDG's composition, I feel like something that does a ton of damage later on, like the Tristana, might work well. The Jinx could also be a possibility, but it's a little bit immobile.
Something else along those lines, you know, Zeri Lulu is a bot lane that has been popular in the past, is available if either of these players want to pick that up. It does make you a little bit more vulnerable in the laning phase though, so we'll see if that is the road they want to take. A lot of these engaged supports though, now out of the picture. If you're looking down the tier list, something like the Rakan now really pops up in terms of priority with the Nautilus banned away.
Alistar
Obviously, the Rakan's also banned away. I'm just not looking at the bans seemingly here in this draft. As we're here in game number 3, obviously. YCX going to lock in that Alistar. That's a pretty good pairing, as we'll see the Ezreal and the Braum followed up here by EDG.
Okay, so that very much stops any look towards these very much wombo combo kind of compositions for LGD. You now very much don't want to be picking yourself the misfortune in this situation. I think you want something aggressive. Mobile Zeri does pick the picture. It is very aggressive, though, to go towards the Zeri. I would imagine they'd want to play something a little bit less forward-thinking. Ooh, okay, the Sivir actually going to be the lock-in right here. Now, that leaves you in a bit of an interesting situation where the top side of the map's gone flying into the back line, and you're not exactly going to be able to follow up. You usually prefer playing a lot more backwards as the Sivir. So we'll see how Shaoye is going to be able to navigate this.
It almost looks like a 1-3-1 can be set up a little bit for LGD as well. You have a lot of wave clear with this Sivir in the mid lane. You have the Vi that can kind of run around across the map, and these soul laners can operate decently on sides, especially compared to something like a Victor here for EDG. So maybe that could be where LGD can find some advantages, because EDG, this top side, again, I mean, mentioned it, the team fighting, very, very good, especially with Angel on his Victor. This is a signature pick of his throughout the season here in 2025 on EDG. And that could be where this game is broken open. Again, LGD specifically need a win here to clinch top 2 in Group Nirvana, go up to 4-0 on the season, and make sure that they get themselves at least one best of 5 to try to make their way into the LPL playoffs.
This game is going to be very interesting for Angel and Shaoye, because both of these champions very much prefer the more standard front-to-back style of gameplay once we get into these team fights, but I don't think there's going to be any lines in the sands particularly drawn. I mean, the Vi, the Ambessa, even the Ari and the Alistair for LGD all want to go flying in. They want to get themselves more towards the backline. Same kind of thing for EDG. I think they can play a slightly more standard front-to-back level of competition if they want it, but they can also change things up, go a little bit crazy. If ZDZ and Xiaohao want to go flying in as well, these team fights might turn into messes, but in these sorts of messy team fights, that is where Angel can really pop off. If you drop that Arcane Storm into the backline and people aren't having to just think about that, they've got lots of other things to notice, that's when you can start dealing massive damage with this Victor.
And we've seen it from Angel time and time again this year. Some other pocket picks selected. Nayo's Vi. Sasi on the Ambessa has been very good. It's all going to come down to this. Game number 3 between LGD and EDG start right now.
Let's see it right here. Incredibly important matchup. EDG winning this one locks them away from those bottom 2 spots in Group Nirvana, those devastating spots where you don't get to play both the rest of this split and any of next split. Your entire season would be done right here in May of 2025. That's a fate you very much want to avoid. It also opens up the possibility that they can make it through into that top 2, go face some of those Group Ascend teams. LGD winning right here locks them into those top 2 spots. So much riding on this game, and it's been 2 very different games. A pretty back and forth one in game number 1, and utter domination from LGD in game number 2.
And again, for LGD, it's not just the ability to maybe clinch yourself a spot in the playoffs. If you do win that best of 5, you of course get to play in the postseason, but you also most likely have the opportunity to be in that Group Ascend for Split 3. EDG want to try to put a stop to that here as they are already sending Xiaohao up to try and stop Nayo here on his own Wolves. So every single game, we've seen a little awkward jungle strategy. This time it's going to go EDG's way, with the Neferi getting the first start of things on the enemy jungle.
And the Neferi is such a strong jungler at the moment. The amount of damage you can do, the survivability you can get through that E as well, just adds so much to this champion. Oh my god.
Between the towers.
This is aggression right here. This is... I really like this. I thought initially it was just going to be, once again, that vertical jungling being set up, but at this point, you are chasing Nayo through his jungle and making it so there's no comfortable places for him to really farm, and a lot less risks that he's going to be able to counter-invade you and go even.
Now YCX could be in some trouble here, has to flash away. And so Nayo and YCX in a little bit of trouble as Xiaohao is starting to take 3 camps away here from the Vi, with ZDZ joining after picking up some push on that second wave. Xiaohao in a great position here in this early game.
And it is particularly important right now that the bot lane push is coming through for EDG, because they can now move quicker to any plays. XQW.
For XQW.
Oh,
the bleed. Almost taking him down. Less than 100 HP he is at, and that means that Nayo can't even go for an evade of his own.
He's going again.
Just continue to chase him.
And this is what I was saying, right, with that push in the bottom lane, if you do want to go aggressive and potentially try to fight onto Nayo or steal away some camps, having this bot lane push is going to be critical for that, for getting Arn and Wink to come join up with you that much quicker. For right now, things are backed off a little bit. Xiaohao decides maybe he wants some of his own jungle too, but he's now stolen away 3 camps from Nayo, significantly delayed this Vi on the clear.
And this is the most impressive part. Oh, okay, never mind. He picked up 2.
The
dogs
one
tanked him in the tower. Like.
Yeah, and it's really not the end of the world as well. Hang on, wait, look, he's in there again.
Steal it again? Oh my god!
8 to 19
Xiaohao has
CS.
4 camps in Nayo's jungle. Nayo
He's still
has 2
chasing
camps in his own jungle. He's homeless.
This is only 1 camp that Xiaohao has taken from his own lane. And this really sucks for a Vi, because usually Vi pretty good on the skirmish, but Xiaohao isn't even level 3 yet.
This is disaster. I mean, Nayo is just completely out of this early game right now.
Does he get to go take the bottom lane scuttle, or do you chase him down here too as Xiaohao? Because at some point you have to take your own camps.
I would send On and Wink up there to try to contest him personally. I think it would be very funny. It's obviously not going to happen. The smite is available here for Nayo. He should be able to pick this one up. Finally, Ding's level 3. But now Xiaohao gets to clear his own jungle. And this is just like where he gets to continue to add to this lead. EDG slowly, combined with their lanes, are up 700 gold right now in this game.
Yeah.
And it's going to only continue to grow because Nayo has really nowhere to go.
And this is not just through the jungle, but also through the mid lane, because we saw these junglers multiple times pop up in the mid. XGW just hasn't been allowed to fully farm up in the way he would have otherwise wanted to, and has also dropped down by about 10 CS. These are significant leads for this point in the game. Finally, we're going to see some recalls coming on through. The bottom side camps, the bottom side red buff and Krugs are still level 1 camps right here for Xiaohao.
So the second spawns of things finally starting to come through. Nio going to be able to get back into this one just a little bit. XQW doesn't have his flash in the mid lane from that earlier play. So has to play very far back in this situation. Bot lane really controlled right now by EDG, as is the mid lane everywhere. Really controlled here by Edward Gaming. We're trying to pull off the supposed upset over LGD. And it's going well so far, most notably off of Nio on this Nefiri.
The thing that you would want here as LGD is to have 2-0'd EDG, get yourself locked into those top 2 spots, and then we'd be talking about this team as being too good for Group Nirvana, right? They beat everybody in Group Nirvana, clearly they're the best squad, and maybe they've got a chance against these Group Ascend teams. Now that they're not even potentially going to come out of this one as the clean 5-0 victors, all of a sudden the narrative very much does change, and it's this extra level of pressure on them. They could still technically drop out of those top 2 spots and not even make it into those play-ins.
It would require a lot of different tie-breaking situations. Obviously, LGD have gotten themselves off to a very good start. I think only dropping a single game into the season, entering today against EDG. Obviously, that has changed, given how EDG were to take game number 1. But if LGD lose this one, all of a sudden you have to worry about things just a little bit more. Their next matchup after that, their final one, will be up against Ultra Prime in a little bit over a week. And if Ultra Prime are suddenly doing good, we get a bunch of teams at 3-2, and that would be very scary in terms of tiebreakers. We get a bit of a skirmish here in the bottom lane. Shaoye doing a lot of damage here, finally cropping that concussive blows on, burning the barrier at just the right time. Means that he'll be able to survive.
You can see multiple people roaming down towards this bottom lane as well. The dragon had been started up by Nio, has to jump off of that one as Angel and Xiaohao pop up to potentially stop that one going Dover. XQW sniffing in the area, everybody gonna go back. No kills gonna go over still. Despite the fact we're at a no kills at 7 minutes game, still a ton of action early on. And as we take a look back in at what that has meant, 7 CS lead in the mid lane. But yeah, specifically, this hurts so bad. Nio has had a terrible time, still only level 4 at the moment. Xiaohao now going to tick over to that level 6, so this Nefiri is now unlocked.
And we know what happens when Nefiris get fed in the early game.
Oh yeah.
Not good things if you're playing against it. And that means that Xiaohao has a big opportunity to do a lot here in this game. Already picking up the first 3 grubs. Dragon should certainly be a priority if he wants it. Or maybe you can just steal away some more camps. And it looks like the red buff going to be the focus here. And again, Xiaohao having that level 6, and also with ZDZ and Angel having push early here in these lanes.
Exactly.
Has nothing to do about it.
That is what is fully unlocking Xiaohao to be able to push into these jungles and really get aggressive, right? You've got push through the bottom lane early on, you've got push in the mid lane and the top lane at this point in the game, and it just unlocks you to be able to be aggressive and know, hey, even if things begin to go a little bit wrong, I'm gonna have that backup with me that much quicker. You can see currently the CS gap is going to be 30 CS, the difference, at just 8.5 minutes into the game, with the 3 grubs already picked up, with the Drake now potentially in EDG's sightline. This is only going to get worse.
True counter jungling masterclass that we are witnessing right now here by Xiaohao against Nio in game number 3. And again, still opportunities for LGD to clinch their spot if they do drop this series, but it just becomes a little bit more stressful, especially if Ultra Prime are able to take care of business in their next matchup.
Exactly.
A weird tie-break situation, as we already alluded to. You don't want that to come down to your last game, especially after starting off 3-0.
Exactly. Things all of a sudden falling apart. I mean, EDG and Ultra Prime are both in position to overtake LGD if things go wrong. They'd have the head-to-heads as well. LNG also going to be watching this one with rapt breath. They very much need EDG to fall in this matchup too. Otherwise, it's pretty much guaranteed that their season is going to end, but at least not their year.
That is true. That's always the big relief. But
yeah, that's the thing, right? Not making it out of this group Nirvana feels so much less bad when the other option was not getting to play for the entire rest of the year. And this is what we were worried about, Route. Xiaohao was going to be able to turn this around into a Drake as well. 3 grubs, the first Drake, most of your enemies' camps too. This really is a masterclass of counter jungling, and the way you could use this Neferi early on. Leaving the Vi open was always going to be a risk, right? The Vi is an incredibly strong champion at the moment, but because the full dive composition was already sort of off of the board, because the Kai'Sa had already been taken earlier on, you weren't so worried about getting taken down with this sort of composition. And instead, right now, they are just bullying out onto Nayu, who's honestly had a little bit of an iffy series so far.
Especially considering what he's been able to do for this LGD roster so far in this split, which is being the big difference maker in terms of allowing LGD to kind of break out of whatever slump they were in during the placement stages to get themselves into a position where they were 3-0. But that has not really continued so far, at least in this series. Nayo really struggling here compared to what we were expecting of him, even against a team like EDG, who, yeah, maybe we thought they were just like kind of an average team. They've taken care of business. They dropped a series earlier on in the Nirvana stage as well. Maybe they'll be able to do it against the currently undefeated EDG.
Let's see it. LGD really have had a very good start to this group, Nirvana, but right now I feel like they're getting pushed around just a little bit. Still, no kills yet in this game. 2,000 gold lead available for EDG. Next set of grubs going to be spawning in 30 seconds time, but this is not your jungle. Your jungle's not your jungle at this point, and actually, Xiaohao goes in.
We ult all the way over the wall here. Nayo going to be in a lot of trouble. He's going to have to ball breaker right back out. He'll be matched with a flash of Xiaohao, but Nayo's now on the complete wrong side of the map. Xiaohao going to continue to try to chase him down. That Q2 connects. The burn's not enough. Will Nayo be able to escape this one? It's just going to try to buy as much time as possible. There comes one more Q. It's first blood in for EDG.
Nearly 12 minutes into the game for that first blood to be able to spawn, but this is exactly one of the worst times possible to go down. That second set of grubs are now going to be up and available, and this one should be nice and easily picked up right here for EDG. EDG really have been in control of this early game. I understand Nayu attempting to go steal away that red buff, but he was read like a book, and even then he didn't have any priority in the mid or the bottom lane, so he was getting collapsed upon from all sides.
This goes bad for worse to worse a little bit here for Nayo. He was trying to get something back. He's like, guys, okay, their red buff's up. I'm going to do a little counter jungle of my own. They'll never expect this. And then immediately gets met by a Neferi, who ends up 1v1ing her. And now Nayo's down 40 CS, or 35 CS, instead of the original 30. 1,000 gold lead, specifically in the jungle, at this point in the game, is frankly absurd. And that's what's giving EDG a very significant advantage in this game, and potentially setting themselves up for a series win.
The sort of gold deficit that is pretty tricky to overcome when it happens this early on into the game, especially with a champion like the Vi, who really needs things to go at least even during the early game. She's always going to be useful in that you've got a lot of CC to add, but there's a situation where you don't have enough items under your belt where you attempt to go in, and before that cease and desist has even arrived, you've already been taken out on the way there, and that's a really rough situation to put your team in, especially when you are a big bit of that initial engage. Yes, you've got an Alistar and potentially an Ahri Charm to play around as well, but you're very much looking for the combo right here between that Vi and the Ambassador to make landing the public execution so much easier for Sasi.
We haven't seen that link up just yet, as Nayo hasn't had a lot of time to gank because he's been busy trying to salvage whatever's remaining of his jungle. It's like the dog got to the dinner table first, and now Nayo's like looking around for the scraps of whatever was left for him potentially. And
really has him picking up whatever remains, being chased around his jungle as well, right? He's not been able to just breathe at any point.
It's been tough. It's been very tough. Now Nayo maybe going to look for some sort of combination here with Sasa on the Ambessa. The lane gank could be in the cards here. Might have got spotted here. We'll see if EDG decides to face check, goes a little bit too far forward. There's the vault breaker combined with the public execution. EDG going to try to get something here. The Koldami heals them a lot. And ZDZ will be able to survive without even burning that flash.
That feels so rough right here for EDG. You needed to be able to pick up that kill, get Sasa ahead, get Nayu back onto the map. And yes, EDG is now low, but here comes Xiaohao, jumps over the wall.
Now counter gank to try to match things up. Not going to use that call to pack, so instead we'll force Sasa back away. That's all that it'll be. And EDG overall still holding on to that 1,500 gold lead, even though only one kill has fully gone over.
TP coming down towards the bottom lane for Angel right here means that he's going to be in the area for this spawning Drake. Going to be a Hextech Drake to pick up a very good one to be able to grab on the individual. And if EDG just want to keep up their complete domination of the objective so far, this is what they're going to be looking for. I mean, right now, this is a perfect game. Don't expect that to continue. You know, neither of these teams play the cleanest kinds of team fights. Still, the fact they've been able to maintain that for the first 15 or so minutes of this game has been very impressive from EDG.
And it's not necessarily the early games that we've really praised EDG for. In their games, in their series that they've won, it's been a lot of team fighting, obviously, as we mentioned. But Xiaohao specifically is having a great series so far, specifically in their wins, obviously. Game number 2, you got faced up against the Naya Lilia. You're bound to have something bad happen to you. But game number 1 on the Zhenzhou, game number 3 here on the Nefiri, things going very well for him. And now they're looking for a gank here onto Shaoye, who uses Spell Shield to get away from the slow of the ultimate proc. That's all that it'll be. It looks like LGD going to back away and be out just fine.
Had to pop that ulti right there. Needed the extra little bit of movement speed from the On The Hunt to be able to run away. Still, that's not a massive teamfight ulti to lose. And you do not have to worry so much about the Nefiri for a couple of seconds now. Rift Herald is available, and LGD, they've brought the majority of members around to it. XQW does also have that teleport if you want to turn this into a straight 5v5.
Let's see how important it's valued here by LGD, who have already given up the first 6 scrubs.
Yeah.
They don't want to necessarily give up any more in terms of pushing power.
Stepping up right now, so risky, especially into a Braum. The Braum, the Fury, going to be able to stack those permafrost passives so quickly. It's so tricky to be able to walk away right here. Happy enough to just be farming up in the mid lane. We were worried a little bit about the life of whatever ADC was picked for EDG. That's why they went towards a very safe Ezreal. So far, so good. We have a quick look in the picture-in-picture of what it was that went down in the bottom lane. Didn't result in any kills, it was just a lot of damage being done.
No Arcane Storm for Angel, but he's already in the base anyway. As EDG secured themselves the Rift Herald. One more objective in their hands as they continue to really control this game, even though a full fight hasn't broken out yet.
And the gold lead has actually come down just a little bit now, going to be only 1,000, and that is pretty much entirely sat right here onto Xiaohao. He's in such a strong position, now potentially looking to gank top lane.
See if it works this time. Looks like Sasi knows better than to try to dive. Full health, or half health connecting with ulti, so no attempt at that follow-up there. On decides to Mystic Shot backwards for fun, and missed that one as well, point blank.
It's all good. He's still getting the majority of this CS. It's fine. It's fine. You know, small differences may well be impactful. We have now gotten far enough into this game for first items to be completed, well on the way to the second items for a lot of these carries too. Specifically, Xiaohao, very close to having that second item completed. And already with this Eclipse, it gives you that extra bit of survivability, a ton of damage. Could potentially be looking to exert that pressure onto the bottom lane right now. There is a Drake spawning in 2.5 minutes. Not really anything to play for on the map at the moment, other than, of course, continuing to make Nayu's life miserable.
And he's been able to get a little bit back. You know, 110 CS at this point is relatively respectable, but Xiaohao really still continues to be accelerated here. As now they're looking for a play potentially on the bottom side. XQW has to run underneath his tier 1 turret. There's not enough of a wave for EDG to go for the dive. So now, turning your attention back towards farming, picking up some of your camps here for Xiaohao. Getting closer to that full second item completed. If you can get that done before this next dragon spawns, to be soul point for your team would be a very good situation for EDG.
Absolutely. Pushing this game on, accelerating this game through. Effective right there. Arcane Storm just going to be dropped onto XQW's head. Takes a ton of damage. Is just have to run away. Is able to get away, but still, you're conceding a ton of pressure down onto this bottom lane. Oh.
Ulti.
Would have missed anyway. Still, recall coming through just fast enough. But the main thing is that you've now pushed anybody who could potentially have responded to this play bot lane out of the lane. And now, with the 6 grubs picked up, you'll be able to take a ton of damage off of this tower. They do at least pick up first tower, do LGD, through the push from Sasi in the top lane. And that is something, right? It's no longer going to be a perfect game right here for EDG. They're still very much in control of this one.
And now it's another one of those weird situations where the last feat of strength to be given over is actually the feats of warfare. Normally that's one of the first ones to go down, especially in my solo queue games where that one's out of the picture in like 5 minutes. So
you make it 5 minutes? I've watched my top laner die 3 times in the first 2 minutes,
hey,
and it's my fault.
Sometimes it's me. So
okay, you know what?
It's a little close to home.
On Sion?
Things happen, okay?
Okay.
You've seen the bouts. You've seen the bouts play.
I have indeed.
Okay.
I have indeed. Yeah, you know what? Fine. Respect. We do have the Atakan up unavailable now. EDG potentially going to be looking for this one. They don't have to over-push in this game, though. You need to play respectful, of course. The all-in potential of this LGD composition is very strong. Pick 2. You can ever land a charm. Still, though, Shaoye just having to walk away here. Gets chunked out to half HP without really ever getting too close to the EDG members.
And that's a pretty good situation now for EDG, as one of the main carries for the opposition is already chunked down to half HP. Teleport's going to come in from ZDZ to join the fight, as the dragon has been potentially started up here, or at least tickled by LGD. EDG would get soul point if they're able to collect this one, but with the Herald proc in the mid lane, LGD have to pull away from it, at least for a second, to try to regenerate that mid priority. And that means that right now EDG can just head right back to the objective. There's really not a position for LGD to contest this one.
I'm not sure that was the ideal use of the Rift Herald. I feel like there are other ways you could have potentially gotten yourself mid lane priority and pushed LGD away. Still, this one is effective enough, and with the 6 grubs, you're not too worried about missing out on the extra damage to towers. Cracking open the mid lane tier 1 would have been nice overall. Still, that is going to be soul point for EDG. They've got themselves, again, about 1,000 gold lead. They really haven't been able to extend that gold lead any further, but it's not in the gold where the power is right now. It's the 6 grubs, it's 3 drakes, it's all of these little extra stat bonuses that you're getting that are really giving EDG that edge.
Yeah, I mean, and it's going to continue to grow, especially if that next dragon is picked up. And so now LGD on a serious timer in this game, Bloxer. Think about what the Ocean Soul could mean for something like someone like a Nefiri, a Renekton, even the Ezreal. Just the constant healing you're going to be able to put out makes it so much harder to deal with, especially when LGD are going to rely on, using some of their long-range damage as well, things like the Sivir and the Ahri. So don't want to give that one up. Ooh, Sasi almost hits that ultimate on the Angel. Kind of dodged away from it without him even knowing. That was some Matrix level stuff.
And this is the problem, right, with the Ambessa. You really need to use it in conjunction with something else. YCX going in, a charm landing out of the Ahri, or the great combo between the Vi and the Ambessa. Actually landing the public execution straight up is very tricky, and we see it missed quite a lot, even at this top tier of competition. Now I'm not going to have available that very important ulti for a while. See if we are going to be able to see a fight from EDG or LGG anytime soon. We've got less than 2 minutes at this point until the Baron is going to spawn. Maybe then we'll get a team fight, or a fight, or an anything.
I find it very hard to believe that these teams are going to fight for Baron right now. With how scared they have been to go for any sort of engage anywhere after the initial early invade from Xiaohao in the jungle of Nayo, I think we're waiting for that soul at this point. If EDG do not want to flip their lead at this point around a Baron, as that certainly would be what it is. As Xiao does take a decent chunk of damage to XGW, but with all the cooldowns already kind of off of there, the last for Angel to get more damage. And actually, with the jungler top lane, LGD are going to head down to the bot lane and pick themselves up a really free Otacon.
Yeah, I mean, unless EDG can pull a miracle out, this one should just go over nice and easy. LGD finally get themselves one of these neutral objectives. They are now going to have those respawns. We can get even more fights without kills actually going down.
And now YCX can play very aggressive to just try to clear this wave out. Even if he loses all his health, it's not going to really matter too much. He'll just head back to base. 200 gold given over. And XGW here to teleport in time. As LGD can continue to play a little bit more reckless with these dead bodies and without any really major objective available for the next few minutes or so. Unless you want to fully fight for this Baron, Nayo dashing forward, forcing Wing to back away. And so LGD get themselves a little bit more time in this one.
On the one hand, I understand why EDG have been a bit passive. Yes, your Nefiri got ahead, but you've got yourself a Victor and an Ezreal. These are champions who would like to scale at least to the 2-item mark before really wanting to get involved. I mean, Ezreal does have a very hard 1-item spike, but you never really wanted to play around that one. But you've also got yourself a Renekton in the top lane you could have potentially tried to bring to some of these skirmishes. EDG, they bullied Nayu around during the laning phase. Yes, he's still down about 40 CS, but he's really not as far behind as he could have otherwise been. And EDG, it felt like they never were really comfortable to really push that advantage that they were able to get for themselves through that creative jungle pathing.
And it really, that's right now the entire gold lead. You take a look at what's on the bottom of your screen and what's on the top of your screen. It's about 1.3k in favor of EDG, and Xiaohao has about a 1.3k lead over Nio. They're going to try to change that here now in the mid lane. A beautifully executed public execution from Sasi will pick up the first kill onto Odd as LGD are finally on the board. They pick up the kill onto the enemy AD carry right as the Baron spawns, and they might be turning right towards it.
Yeah, why not head straight over onto this one? I mean, right here, without Arn being up and available, that's a ton of the damage for EDG just gone. They can still step up, though, and you do still have Xiaohao up and available. ICX actually going on the big flank.
Here. Now dashing forward, but remember, he doesn't have that ultimate, neither does Sasi right now, and that means the health bars could be bursted down. ZDZ forcing 2 resets already, flashes forward for a third, and XQW, the only one with a Voracious Autocon buff still alive. That's one real kill, combined with all the resets going down, as even though it doesn't look like it on the scoreboard, EDG get a big boon.
They really do. That's going to bring them out to about a 2k, nearly 3k gold lead. They can't turn it straight around into the Baron or anything, though, and because those are false lives for the most part, it's just going to be these quick resets coming on through. I have to see what the item advantage you can get from that gold is going to be. Right now, it's just 2 items completed on the majority of these champions. We've also now got the very important Drake up and available. But this one, oh, it's just way over-aggressive right here. Now, really has no right to be jumping this far into the backline, and as we talked about, right, the Arcane Storm over the top of multiple members throughout that fight really just wrecks things here for LGD. They're lucky they've got the false lives, but they're still giving over a lot of gold to EDG.
Now, LGD had a chance to get into that pit a little bit earlier because all of EDG had to go for resets after making those plays for the taking of the false lives. But now, Xiao's back on the Dragon Pit. It's going to be Soul unless Nio can get in there, so he's got to go in quick. At 4,000 HP the Dragon is, but Nio's already so low. And now EDG just have full opportunity to try to pick up the Soul. True Shot Barrage comes out. Finally, Nio going to try to get in, but it's already taken away by Xiaohao. That's Ocean Soul for EDG. And they finally collect the Feats of Warfare with 2 more kills in their pocket.
There we go. We're going to watch EDG just finally explode onto this game after they have been so passive, creative pathing in the early game into a passive mid game. But team fighting is EDG's bread and butter. Maybe they don't play the laning phase so well, but yes, this team knows how to team fight, and now Wink, Angel, they're going to play bodyguard and make sure there's no way that Nio can step up and potentially get involved in this Baron play. Baron going down relatively slowly with only 2 members attacking it. Still, there's no path forwards for the buy. You think? Hang on. No flash. Does he have another Vault Breaker?
XCW's looking
he's
here
gonna get
as
in the
well.
pit.
Nio gonna be a hero.
Oh!
No, 10 HP. The Baron was at, but it gets picked up by Edward Gaming. On takes down Nio. ZDZ pops a Dominus to stay alive. And XQW and Shaoye now have to run on out of there as the Baron buffs in all 5 hands of EDG, and they're going to try to make you push down here onto this mid lane turret. Arcane shift forward on, throwing out some mixed shots, and they're not even going to go for the resets. They just want to continue to force down the base.
Yeah,
Xiaohao jumps over the wall. They can try to look a little bit further on to XQW. There's the call to pack. No, but Xiaohao goes a little bit too far forward, but the intargetable means he's able to escape. EDG potentially with highway robbery and XQW trying to make a play. Flash charm onto Angel, does not find a damn thing, and Edward Gaming will get out scot-free with Baron in their hands.
And they're going to be able to take these quick resets and then continue the pressure right here. You've got tier 2 towers to still take in the top and the bottom lane. We'll have a look back at this one. This is now nearly double steals away from Nio on 2 straight objectives. But it's just Xiaohao with a great early game turning into picking up these objectives right here. It's a complete mess of a team fight overall. You're just not quite able to steal anything away. Sasi goes into the backline and doesn't get anything either. And it's just well played right here out of EDG. You can see the main carries of Angel and Arn practically full health for the entirety of that fight around both the Drake and the Baron.
And even though the KDAs don't look too drastic, this has been absolutely a jungle diff between Xiaohao and Nio. As a newcomer from LGD, all of a sudden maybe even some extra trouble with the Glacial Fissure coming out. LGD has been forcibly and systematically eliminated from this game's impact at all. Nio has been able to do almost nothing here in game number 3, which should be the decider, should be the clincher for LGD to confirm themselves a spot in the play-in, but it's EDG spoiling their opportunity here and continuing to push down mid.
Gonna push forwards further and further right here. Mid lane, bot lane taking a lot of heat at the moment. And remember, the 6 grubs went over to EDG earlier on, so they are gonna melt through these towers. You can see it right here. This bot lane at tier 3 gonna fall so very soon. 2 Baron empowered cannon minions firing onto it. Here goes LGD.
Assist on. Combined with the public execution on, going to be taken low, taken down by Sasa. It's 2 kills onto EDG, but what will the response be here for ZDZ? Xiaohao and ZDZ still so tanky here on this front line. XQW running the wrong way. The Baron empowered minions are going to take him down. It's a double kill for Angel, who gets the last hit on that one, and it's a 2 for 3 overall, so LGD do find something back.
Yeah, they're actually going to cut this Baron push off, and they don't lose any of these towers. The fact the base remains is crazy right here. Well played out of LGD. They found that angle to go on in. This is what you need to do as Nio. You're really not going to be able to survive through these team fights, but use that Cease and Desist Vault Breaker combo to just get into the backline, stop either Angel or Ard, mainly Angel because he's got a lot less mobility, and then hopefully the team fight can be won from there. Without the Chaos Storm down onto the backline, it's a lot of the damage from EDG gone. Maybe it's playable for LGD, but still, they're down by 5,000 gold at this point in the game. It's going to be very tough to be able to pull off a comeback.
Very tough indeed, but that was maybe one sign of what could potentially happen. And somebody we haven't talked about for much of this game is Shaoye in the bottom lane here for LGD. Again, one of the only players on this team that is not actually a rookie. This is his second year on the team, which at this point makes him a veteran. And now he has to put the team on his back a little bit on this Sivir. Has 3 full items. Nobody else on his team really at that point just yet, other than Sasa, who also has gotten himself into a decent spot. But it's going to be up to the Sivir to really have a big impact in these later game team fights.
Yeah, I mean, as much as EDG are in control of this game, they haven't been able to get themselves so far ahead that there's these massive item differences across the board. At least at the peak of power of LGD, they're still in a decent spot. Lord Dom's going to be the next pickup right here for Shaoye. And once he's got those 4 items completed, that's the point at which the Sivir really starts to hit. I mean, it's such a ridiculously long lead time to get your Sivir to the point where you can really take over the game. But also, that On the Hunt ultimate is going to be incredibly strong too, to just push these members of LGD forward. See if you can't get your main carries right here of Sasi and Nio into the back line and find those initial picks. This game is not out of reach for LGD to be able to mount a comeback. Thing is, 30 seconds until an Elder is up and available, and then 1 minute 15 until the Baron is here. There is a very real possibility that as EDG, you can just pick yourself up the Elder, turn around into a Baron, and then push through for the end with very little recourse for LGD to be able to counter.
And that's what EDG are hoping for, and that's what EDG have been able to do so far in this game. For a lot of these dragons were just not fought for. A lot of these neutral objectives kind of were just given over to EDG for free. But LGD cannot let that happen now. Shaoye already taking a big chunk of damage through the True Shot Barrage. He'll be able to heal up a little bit off this wave, has the double buffs in his inventory as well. But Angel starting to get unlocked as well here. Level 17 on the Victor. 3 full items in his own right. As the Elder Dragon has spawned, and EDG are going to start it up.
Let's see, are any LGD members going to be able to find their way in? It's very much going to be on Nio and Sasa to find that engage, that moment. Where can you go?
He gets locked out. He pops the stopwatch, though, so he's going to stay alive for just a little bit. 3-man knockup, though, does connect here for LGD, but ZDZ's in the backline, but the dominance already popped. Shaoye finally has the spell shield taken away. Public execution doesn't find anything, but the health bars on EDG are low. YCX could be the first one to fall, though. XQW flashes forward, lands the charm on Angel. YCX the headbutt pulled, but will finally go down to be the first casualty. Sasa headed back to base. He's going to try to teleport back in with full HP to make it a bit of an even fight for LGD. They've already lost a member, but Xiaohao still at full health. The Elder Dragon at 4,000 HP. It's going to be a flip. Who's going to get it? It's secured by EDG. The Elder Dragon belongs to them. And then their members will drop like flies. 3 already down. XQW the last one surviving. And he won't be for any much longer in this game. Edward Gaming picked themselves up the ace. They're going to march down the mid lane and hand LGD their first loss in Group Nirvana.
EDG, they secure themselves at least split number 3. They will not be eliminated from the LPL for the rest of 2025. It was on a knife's edge right there. It could have been either jungler's Elder, but it's picked up by Xiaohao after a masterclass in the jungle early on. With a victory right here, LGD, they are no longer undefeated. EDG, they are fighting to go play up against those Group Ascend teams.
It makes things a little bit more interesting here, as now both LGD and EDG are tied at 3-1, and LNG suddenly left holding their breath. Oof. They're at 3-2.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they could sneak into the top 2 if things start to go other teams' ways moving forward. As both LGD and EDG have one more series left up. LGD have to play up against Ultra Prime. Edward Gaming now get the opportunity to play against OMG, who's not necessarily been the strongest, or sorry, RNG, who has not necessarily been the strongest opponent as of late. Yeah. So the momentum for Edward Gaming maybe starting to rise up. They played themselves a very clean game number 3, all things considered. It came down to a couple of flips that maybe you shouldn't have at the very end of things, Bloxer.
Yes.
But they got the flips. The point landed heads up, and that's all that matters.
Genuinely a crazy game. It felt like EDG could have pushed their advantage a little bit earlier on. They're really waiting for those item breakpoints, waiting for Angel's Victor to really come online and start dealing the damage with those Arcane Storms in the later stages of the game. And this ends with things very, very interesting for Group Nirvana. Right now, nobody would be particularly surprised, right? If OMG and RMG, right there, eliminated. Sorry guys, we'll see you next year. Maybe. Hopefully. We'll see on that front. However, Ultra Prime sat at 2-1 right now. EDG now 3-1. LNG 3-1. LGD 3-1. So you are in a very interesting spot right here where there's a lot of teams who can make it through, and it's very important to note that it's not head-to-head that's the first deciding tiebreaker. The first deciding tiebreaker is game differential, so you want to be picking up as many 2-0s as possible. That's something LGD had been able to do very well for themselves up until this point. All of a sudden, things are looking a little bit more iffy overall. I really have no clue who's going to be those top 2 teams that go and face those Group Ascend.
So right now, LGD 7-3 overall in game score with a 3-1 record. That's a +4 in terms of their game differential. Edward Gaming currently at 7-4, so that's +3. They're currently exactly tied with LNG in terms of game score with 1 series left to play. That means if they win that series, they'll pass LNG. If they lose it, I think LNG should be ahead of them, all things considered. So the pressure's on for EDG. They have to win against RNG to keep their Split 2 season alive. Whereas for LGD, it's a very similar situation, although it could get a little fishy against Ultra Prime, as that team has also looked not too bad as of late.
Yeah. If all of a sudden they then get knocked down to finishing up at 3-2, we've got an absolute maul in the middle of the pack right here. Things are incredibly close. Remember, LNG, they've played all of their games. That was their last game up against RNG yesterday. They are now finished. 3-2 is the best that they can do. LGD, all they need to do is win one of these final 2 games. They've now lost the EGG series. If they lose against Ultra Prime, 3-2 is going to be a very popular scoreline, and it's going to come down to who had those more 2-0s overall. Genuinely a crazy way to finish this one off, to have lost to a team but have won more games and lost less games overall and then make it out. I mean, a crazy way to do this format anyway, right? Having this Group Nirvana squad. And so fascinating. At the very beginning, I wasn't sure if we were going to get a clear stratification between the bottom 2 teams and everyone else. That has very much come through. OMG and RNG are bad, but everybody else, very close at the moment.
It's so funny because if you told me at the start of Nirvana, like, who are teams going out, who are the teams that were going to make it out, and I said, like,
LNG is gone.
OMG and RNG, like, I wouldn't have been too surprised, but now they're just completely in bad situations, and the rest of the teams up here suddenly have a chance to, make it out of this Group Nirvana stage. So we take a look at some highlights. Again, just a really tough series overall from Nayo. It's one of his, obviously, some of the worst looks we've seen from him all season long. As he really started to come to this LGD team when they started to look good.
Grapes, this first replay is 15 minutes into this game. That's the point at which this play happened. This was 15 full minutes into this game. That's actually a crazy place to start with these highlights, because it really was That's crazy that he just
Was
did
he?
that.
Did he
I
do
don't
that
think
blind?
he was on vision. I think that was completely blind. I don't know why he stepped back there. Genuinely insane. But it wasn't really about that initial kill that we saw right there from Xiaohao onto his opposing number. It was very much about that counter jungling early on that meant the Vi could just never get involved in this game. Later on, though, there was still a couple of moments where I was like, hey, maybe he can do it. Maybe this steal is actually going to come through. Maybe the Baron, the Elder goes the other way. Not quite. I mean, Xiaohao just goes in a little bit too late on that one. Overall, it wasn't a particularly impressive win in this game number 3, but it's the win on the board that matters. It's getting yourselves into those play-ins that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, again, just came down to that early game lead that Xiaohao was able to pick up over Nayo. I would have to imagine he gets player of the game just because of those early leads, as the game really was just won off of the back of those wallet diffs at the end of the day. Saw some nice plays started up here by LGD at the end of things. I thought that their setup here was not too bad, but it just came down to not being able to pick up that steal. Even though the health bars got low on EDG, it wasn't low enough to end up finishing the game.
No, just not quite enough here. Really just got so close towards the very end of this game. And now, MVP. I mean, is it just Xiaohao for completely ruining?
I didn't realize, by the way,
that's
that's
so
why it was
close.
13 HP difference that Nayo missed it by. So that was really
genuinely so close, because if you pick up that Elder, maybe you're actually able to turn around and pick up a couple more of those kills. The second that it goes over, that game is completely dead in the water. I would agree. I feel like nobody else really had to do too much in that game up until the very end, at which point Xiaohao was still looking really good, and just Nayo's day was not the best throughout. Had a bigger performance on the Lilia, but game number 1 kind of forgot how to play Skarner, was playing by himself in a lot of situations, didn't have the rest of the team following up, and then game number 3 just got chased around the map.
Yeah, I think I have to give it over to Xiaohao, making Nayo look silly kind of in those 2 losses that EDG did have. Whether it was on the Zinzao in game 1, on the Neferi in game 3. This guy turning into a bit of a threat as he does win the MVP on the Neferi. So well done to us for predicting correctly. Well done to Xiaohao, obviously, for winning his team this series and putting Edward Gaming in a very good spot for escaping Group Nirvana to potentially make it into this play-in stage. They need one more win in one more best-of-3 series in order to officially lock their spot there. Once they do that, they can start prepping for a best-of-5 to sneak their way into the playoffs.
Absolutely. As we've been talking about a lot, the teams who they would face if the split were to end today would be either Weibo Gaming or BLG. And yeah, how fitting that one is.
Because it's our next matchup. Here, you know, it took a while to get through this first Nirvana series, but now it is time for the real treat up in Group Ascension. BLG, Weibo Gaming, both tied at 4-4 in the standings, facing off in our last matchup in that first round robin in the top group of the LPL. Who will come out on top? We'll start to learn about that once we come back from this break here on LPL.